In episode 6, everybody believes Assassin/Ellen's story. And the story is that Olsen was able to free himself. He came at Ellen, and Ellen had to defend herself, so she shot him. And since Ellen is this old woman that wouldn't seem to harm a fly, everybody buys it, and Maggie actually starts patching her up. While doing this, though, Assassin does attempt to inhabit Maggie's body, but she's unsuccessful. And that's because James, Ruben, the kids, they've all come back. And by the time they arrive at the farm, McNabb is passed out on one of the horses. He's not doing well. He needs immediate medical attention. While Maggie goes and tends to McNabb, Valeria and Ruben check on Nicholas because he's really shaken up about what he did to McNabb. And they remind him that he was defending his friends in that moment. Still, though, Nicholas feels like he needs to explain the whole situation, and that includes the liquid that Harbinger gave them. And when Ruben hears this, he immediately wants to know exactly where this took place. He demands that Nicholas take him to McNabb's car. Nicholas says, sure, yeah, okay, I'll lead you to the car. It's across the line, though. And Ruben doesn't care. So Ruben, Valeria, and Nicholas all head out in the woods. With Nicholas ahead, this gives Valeria and Ruben a chance to talk, and Ruben lets Valeria know that everything is not okay. That's because he knows about the affair. And you can tell from her face that Valeria feels really guilty about this. She tells her husband the same thing she told Maggie, that it's over. And she also goes on to tell Ruben that this wasn't his fault. This wasn't even James's fault. This was her fault. Something was missing in her life. She didn't know what it was, but she deeply regrets it. Ruben, however, is not over this. The awkwardness finally ends when Nicholas says, Dad, because he's located where the glass jar was broken. And there's a little bit of liquid left in it. And when Ruben sees it, his eyes get transfixed on it. He's definitely mesmerized by it, just like he was in the silo. He snaps out of it, though, when Valeria and Nicholas alert him to the fact that they are being stared down by a wolf. Or it might be a dog that looks like a wolf. It doesn't really identify itself, but it looks dangerous and menacing. The group slowly backs up from the jar. Ruben tells Nicholas he's got to shoot it. But Nicholas is a horrible shot, and all it does is scare the dog/wolf away. Not before it ended up drinking most of the liquid. And that's when they see that, yeah, if you drink the liquid, you are able to cross over the line because the animal does not die. Unfortunately, though, that's all the liquid, and they're not able to get any of it and cross the line and get to McNabb's car. But all is not lost, though. Nicholas notices that there's a little notebook on the ground that McNabb must have dropped. So he pockets it, and he takes it back to the house. Now, back at the house, Maggie was giving McNabb medical care, but she was doing so with the assumption that McNabb was a bad guy. So Arlo tells James, Harbinger wants Mom to know that McNabb is good. Maggie overhears this, and then she tells James, you might want to go check on your mother. She asks if Don can lead James to Ellen, and Don says, yeah, no problem, but he actually doesn't. He brings James up to the barn, because he's the only one that's not really buying Ellen's story. The way that Olsen's body's positioned, it doesn't really indicate that he was able to free himself and attack anybody. It looks like he was just sitting down and he got shot. You add that with the fact that nobody actually saw this happen, and it's just very fishy. With James knowing what he knows about Assassin inhabiting bodies, he tells Don, I need to go talk to my mother. You need to go let Maggie know about this. While Don goes to tell Maggie this information, Maggie's getting the rundown from Harbinger on who he is and why he's there. He tells her that he's there for the machine. He has to find this machine and be very quiet so he doesn't wake them. And who he's talking about are the other assassins. According to him, they're just sleeping, waiting to be woken up. Maggie asks, what happens when you get to this machine? And he explains that he is the on switch. So when he turns it on, they prepare, and McNabb cuts in and says, we prepare for the invasion. Both Maggie and Meryl turn around, and there's McNabb, pointing a gun at them, because he wants to take Arlo. He tries to tell Maggie that her son is the best hope that they have of surviving the invasion, but he's doing so with a gun in his hand. At this point, Don has arrived back, and he sees through the window that this guy, who they don't know, has a gun pointed at his group, and he's got to do something. So he runs back to the house to grab weapons. He runs into James, who hasn't been able to locate his mother at this point, and he lets him know, hey, we got a problem going on. They both then file into the clinic and try to stop McNabb and talk him down, but it's a clusterflub. It results in Don getting shot and McNabb running away. Good news was, though, Don was wearing a bulletproof vest. He'll be all right. James chases after McNabb, but he doesn't catch up to him, and he kind of puts getting McNabb on the back burner. He's more concerned about getting his mom and finding out where she is. And when nightfall hits, he still hasn't located her. So he tells Maggie to take the kids inside, and he and Don will go looking for Ellen. It's around this time where Ruben, Valeria, and Nicholas arrive back, and James fills them in on everything that happened while they were away. While the adults go looking for Ellen, Nicholas heads into the house with the others, and he shows Meryl the notebook. A lot of what's in it is confusing, but some of it does make sense and helps. A little while later, the adults arrive back because they've found Ellen. She was just standing aimlessly in a barn. Her twitching's back, which means her Parkinson's back, which means that assassin probably left her body, and she tells the group that. But they can't really trust her, so they tie her up. They're not really sure what to do. And possibly the bigger issue is if it's not in Ellen, it's in one of them, or somebody who's out there. There's a lot of infighting and a lot of bickering on how to handle the situation until finally Nicholas stands up because he's found something in the notebook. If they find out who has the assassin in them, there's a way to get the assassin out. Unfortunately, though, it's going to require them to drown that person.
Thank you so much for checking out this recap. Please consider subscribing to the channel and subscribing to my Patreon. Hit thumbs up if you liked it. Smash that thumbs down button if you thought it sucked. If you left a comment, I don't get back to you. I usually don't check the comments unless they're like a super comment. Also, if you don't see the next video up on the end screen, not to worry, it'll be up in a day or two.